And here we go.
10.
Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiated. 7, 6, 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
That was the most powerful rocket ever built after the Saturn V. It launched on the 16th of November 2022. And this is a review of that launch. In this video, I will tell you how every single part of the rocket performed and also how it worked. Be ready, because today I will be really digging into the weeds with this subject. So without further ado, let's get started. If you've watched my Are the New Lunar Missions a Good Idea video, you know how windy the road has been to get up to this moment here. Also, another thing to point out, this channel is based on science, so I will only be reviewing scientific parts and not political or financial parts of the review. I will be reviewing each part of the rocket individually from top to bottom to make it more organized. Starting off with the tip of the rocket, formerly known as the launch abort system, it is literally designed to pull the crew away as fast as it can in an emergency. Although since this was the first ever rocket of its kind to fly, it of course wasn't carrying crew, so the launch system was disabled. Of course, if this was a crewed launch, the abort system would be enabled just in case. Moving on to the next part, which is the Orion capsule, what would be containing crew and what contains all the necessary flight computers, performed absolutely perfectly. In this test launch, it did contain 2 dummies to test the G-forces and acceleration that the crew would feel on a crewed launch. It is covered in silica heat shield tiles to protect it, and several maneuvering thrusters to orient it just right for its solar panels to catch as much light as possible. It orbited the moon for approximately 6 days and re-entered the atmosphere successfully. Now moving on to Orion's power pack, also known as the service module, which was pivotal in allowing Orion to function correctly. It features an engine to maneuver it properly, extra thrusters, and solar panels for electricity, more fuel, and oxygen for the crew, although again, since it was uncrewed, well, it didn't need it. Due to the service module being very fragile and unaerodynamic, it required these special aerodynamic shields around it called fairings. Although they were jettisoned and the solar panels deployed once it reached outer space. Moving on to one of the big parts of the rocket, called the Interim cryogenic propulsion stage. It is what actually got the Orion capsule and service module to the moon. It worked perfectly well, nothing was damaged, and it successfully managed to take Orion towards lunar orbit, which is nowhere near as simple as it actually seems. First, it needs to activate its rocket engine to raise its orbit until the lunar gravity caught Orion and the service module with it. Although it's far more than just one big fuel tank and an engine. Just on top of the fuel tanks and below the Orion service module, it contains a cargo hold for rideshare payloads. A rideshare is when lots of different payloads with small satellites share a ride to space on one rocket. Next, we move on to the orange core stage. The rocket is notorious to have this orange color on one of the stages, and that's what it's called, the core stage. It worked very well, and it has 4 engines underneath that were taken from the Space Shuttle program. Fun fact, the rocket is not actually orange. As you can see in one of these pictures, the core stage is actually grey, although they had to put an insulating material on top to stop the super cold fuel from boiling off. Although when coming into contact with sunlight, it causes a chemical reaction which causes it to turn orange, so it's actually not paint. Now we move on to the large SRBs, or solid rocket boosters, on either side of the orange core stage. This was also derived from space shuttle hardware, except for the fact that it was slightly elongated to increase thrust. And yes, the physics of this solid rocket fuel is very strange. The longer you make the stick of propellant, the more thrust it creates. In the end, nearly all of the parts worked perfectly well. I hope you like and share my video and subscribe to my channel. This is Head for Science, and I'll see you in another video.